All right.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to the DLA Internet Bid Board System Working Group. We have here today Alonzo Burris. He is a small business professional with DLA Weapon Support Columbus. You might notice a different name there. I think the first of the month changed their name. But Alonzo is in the small business office, and we've started this working group session. The intent of the session is we have it every other it's actually the month after the actual training knowledge and opportunities session. So it's time enough to get into DIBBS, learn about it, maneuver in it, then come back at the next session to bring your questions, your challenges. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Alonzo. Carry it on.
All right. Thank you, Vicky. And again, sorry for the technical difficulties. So I want to make sure that we get through all the slides and then have the questions at the end because it's a lot of information. So I'm Alonzo Burris, as she said, with Weapon Support Columbus. And so what you're going to learn right here is how to navigate DIBBS. That's the purpose of the presentation. For as far as the agenda is concerned, we're going to do the DIBBS help desk, DIBBS registrations, solicitations, quoting, and then the questions at the end. So this is an example of the DIBBS homepage. And basically, you're going to have the Department of Defense notice and consent banner. You would just want to read through that and then click OK once you understand. Once doing that, it's going to take you into this homepage. And right here, we're going to focus on the help desk for DIBBS. As you can see in here, it's going to talk about you'll have online help, frequently asked questions, online quoting help, and batch quoting help, and then also a contact us page. The reason why we want to talk about this is because a lot of times the answers can be right here, as opposed to going to the actual help desk and emailing them, waiting on answers. So the excuse me, we have the DIBBS help FAQ topics, and as you can see, we have 16 different questions that are answered. And this ranges from getting started in registration questions, user ID password questions, drawing and bid set questions, as well as solicitation and how to search. For DIBBS online quoting help, this is a view of that site. Submitted quotes may be viewed until such time that the requirement is awarded or canceled. So revisions to quotes submitted on behalf of a cage will overlay any previously submitted quote for the same requirement. And this system will provide a message that the quote submittal was successful or unsuccessful. And that's where you see right there in the middle where it says your quote has been successfully submitted. So that's going to show you that, and we'll get into that later when we're talking about quoting. But if you ever see that red unsuccessful, it just basically means you have to do all the work all over again. So here in help, you would click on contact us. And this is a view of that help contact us site. Now, what I want to make sure that everyone understands is that in the comment section, you want to describe the issue in great detail. Because the more information that you fill out in there, the better. And it will also make sure that the right person is looking at your information. Because it could be a technical question or whatever the problem is. And you want to make sure that you're in the right area. So now we're going to move into how DLA buys. So when considering DLA's buying practices, if you think about DLA as a large quality control agency, we have ways in which we assure the quality of the item meets the need of the military customer that we're buying for, right? So the first way is by approved cage code and part number. And what this means is that engineers or technical personnel identify the part that is made by a certain company who has a cage code, and they have approved that part number. So when they want to buy that item, they are asking you to provide that specific item. Now, quite often we'll solicit for a cage code and part number, but vendors will want to offer a substitute that they are certain is just like the item shown on the solicitation. But be careful because we consider this an alternate item. Only cage and part number um, shown on the solicitation can be called the exact item. In other cases, there are qualified products and manufacturers on a list, and that list is called a qualified products list, QPL, or qualified manufacturers list, QML. Technical staff has reviewed the characteristics of the items and the capabilities of manufacturers who provide them. It may be the original manufacturer or someone else. So the QPL and QML list determines what qualified products we will buy and what qualified manufacturers can supply them. The third kind of item would be source control via approved sources. In these cases, source control items are those that have been tested and approved by the OEMs or original equipment manufacturers. And the greatest range of competition, especially for new or small businesses, is in the case of fully competitive items. Here we reserve the right to test, but we don't necessarily test before we buy. What happens then, as part of the DIBBS bidding process, we administer a set of drawings or what's called a technical data package, and the business determines whether or not they can make the item in conformance with those drawings. The businesses submit their offer based on what they feel it would take in terms of time, cost, and profit to provide that item. So these are the primary ways in which a business would determine whether or not they can bid on an item. Either they are on a list, the item has been previously approved, or they can look at a set of drawings, a technical data package, and determine if they can make and quote for that item. So I know this is giving you a lot of information, so just make sure that if you have any questions that you write them down for the end. So there are two common solicitation types. One is a request for quotation. This is for solicitations with an estimated value under $250,000, the most common type of solicitation at DLA. Believe it or not, the average award value at DLA is under $4,000. And when you consider the billions of dollars we spend, you recognize that we issue a lot of solicitations and awards every day and every year. But most interesting is the fact that 30 to 40% of those are awarded without human intervention. So the requirements can be solicited and awarded by an automated system. Your quotes are evaluated by that system, and if all goes well, the announcement of the award is sent to you electronically. So if you are really focused on working on a system where you have a lot of human interaction, this may be a hard system for you to get used to initially, but we'll talk about ways in which you can identify some support resources, both at DLA and in your local community, Apex Accelerators, to help you to effectively participate in that system a bit later. The other type of solicitation is a request for proposal. These are solicitations for awards over $250,000. I believe that moved to $300,000 as of the 1st of October with the new changes. But sometimes they are one-year contracts, sometimes multi-year contracts. The terms of these solicitations can be negotiated once the solicitation period is closed. For example, terms that can be negotiated may include price, delivery time, or delivery quantity. The initial announcement of the solicitation will be found on DIBBS, but the proposal and negotiation will be processed outside of DIBBS. So contract numbering is described in the FAR and applies to all federal contract and solicitation numbers. The DODAC, which as you see in the middle, the DODAC is the location of the buying activity, right? So DLA starts with an S, Army with a W, Navy with an N, Air Force an F, Marines can be an N or an M. Now, so you don't want to use letters I or O as alpha characters in cages or call numbers. Use numbers 1 and 0 only. And when you're looking at this, as you can see, that fourth digit tells you exactly which part of DLA that you're looking at. So one would be clothing and textiles, which would be troop support. Medical is a 2, subsistence is a 3, aviation supply chain, which it would be now weapon support, aviation enrichment is a 4, construction equipment is a 5, energy is 6, and then weapon support, Columbus or land and maritime is 7. The other thing that you want to look at is right here. Well, the fiscal year starts October 1st. So even though we're in year 2025, that number needs to change to 26. And because we're in fiscal year 26. And then the T shows you that it's an automated one-time buy solicitation. So that can be any one of those types. It can be a T, U, Q, or M, R, X, M, C, D, and F. Now I want to point out that the Q or the M are manual solicitations. That means that a buyer is actually going to look at it. They're actually controlling it. And so you actually have eyes on it. When it's a T, that's an automated one, which means that it can be awarded by the system, and a buyer may or may not see it. Okay. All the other ones actually buyers would be looking at it. They would have their hands on it. In the technical data section of federal supply classes shows those FSCs managed by DLA. Now, this is a view of the FSCs managed, and you can see that this list will provide the FSC and the corresponding description of the item. So you want to think of FSC, which are the first 4 numbers of a national stock number, as the area code of your phone number. And the NIN is the last 9 digits, which would be the National Item Identification Number. One thing to point out is that FSC, if you look at, we'll just go with the guns, is 1005 all the way down to 1035. So you can, depending on where your niche is, if your niche is only guns over 30 millimeter up to 75 millimeter, then that's all you have to look at. But if you have that broad range going from up to 30 millimeter all the way up to 300 millimeter, then you would cover the entire range. So what this is what needs to be done when you're registering and registering for DIBBS. So you would register in SAM. You would get DIBBS cage code entry. DIBBS will pre-fill the company data in SAM. You want to have a physical mailing address because they're going to mail a postcard to the address entered in SAM. Use a personal data entry. So you want to make sure that you have a DIBBS account administrator and a super user. So this person needs to be someone that's going to be with the business long term, not just someone short term, because you're going to create the password, have challenge questions, responses, and everything else when you're registering for DIBBS. Now, to avoid disrupting and accessing DIBBS, you want to be aware of the DIBBS term of use, right? So, and what they will do is they will basically put your account on almost like a suspension until you correct these problems. So you want to make sure that you have that your account doesn't seem like it is compromised. You want to make sure you're not sharing account information. You want to make sure that even when it comes down to your mailbox, you want to make sure that it's really a physical address, that it's not a post office box. You want to make sure that if they do a Google Earth search of your company, that it doesn't look like it's a residence, especially if you're saying that you have like manufacturing capabilities or anything like that. So within DIBBS, you want to make sure that they're aware that even if it's at a different location, that this is my office where I do my paperwork, and my manufacturing cage is somewhere else. You have to make sure that they are aware of all this stuff within DIBBS. Okay, this next section is for demonstration purposes only. For new users who need to register, you would go to the vendor registration section, and then you would register. To register, you provide your cage code. Okay, and then here you're going to see the company data information in the center of your screen, and this is pulled directly from SAM. Okay, and you'll either want to enter a name, phone number, email address of your company. The super user DIBBS account administrator will go there, and then when you click on next, the system will send the super user account temporary ID and PIN to the email address provided. Now, if for some reason that PIN number fails, there's a help link for you to email the help desk, and they'll reset the PIN and send you a temporary password. Then to continue the registration process, you'll carefully read the terms of this agreement, and then you would click next after you accept the terms. Then you'll be prompted to establish a password. You will want to make sure that it's uppercase, lowercase, number, special character. Make sure it's 15 characters long. It'll be changed every 60 days, and then select 3 challenge questions with answers, and then you would click next. Then the system will rely on this information when it completes your request for quotation. So you want to complete the alternate dispute resolution, quote valid for, and discount terms, which will autofill into your quote. Now, we'll discuss these terms in further detail in the next section when we get to the quoting. And you want to know who will receive your notices under the solicitation and notification section. You're going to make sure that you include an email address for a primary and secondary point of contact. And those email addresses will be used by DIBBS to send your notifications and new open solicitations as well. Then next is the vendor-directed solicitation notification section. Now, this section is going to allow the super user to direct email notifications of new solicitations that match selections for your FSC, the NSN, and or approved manufacturer cages. So for example, if you choose to receive notice about all solicitations in a federal supply class, then you will receive a single email notice for every new solicitation for that FSC. This will result in hundreds or thousands of solicitations that on that one email received each day, because there are millions of items that can be classified under any FSC. As well as entering an FSC, you can also enter a national stock number that your company is interested in. And then lastly, you can also load approved manufacturer cage codes. So let's say you're a distributor or representative for many manufacturers. You could enter all the different approved manufacturers cage codes that you supply. Then every time there's a solicitation that calls for an item made by that approved manufacturer cage code, you'll receive a notice. Now, once you review your registration information, then you would click submit. And the right side of the screen is what you will see after submitting your registration. The primary user will have an account number, which will be their cage code followed by 01, and that's referred to as a super user. Now, sometimes people come and go, but you definitely want to keep your super user ID current, being that is the primary person contacted by the DIBBS system. Other users may also have account numbers with their cage code followed by 02, 03 up to 99, but they won't be the primary recipients of information from DIBBS. So if you do not receive the confirmation screen, you will need to contact us. And please note that there are slides on the TKO website that address managing and updating your profile and account. Now, let's move over to the solicitation area of DIBBS and review the use of the request for quote search. And remember that a request for a quotation has an estimated value at or below 250,000 or under SAT. So be sure to request for a proposal for opportunities estimated above SAT. All right, so the solicitation types, you have the RFQ and the RFP. The RFQ is the request for quote, which is going to give you your cover page, section A, section B, and section D. And then the RFP, which is a request for proposal, is going to give you section A, a cover page, part 1, part 2, part 3, and part 4. And basically, the RFP is for a large purchase. The RFQ is for a simplified acquisition, which would be under SAT. Now, before we talk about how to search for solicitations, here's some icons that appear inside the solicitation area of DIBBS. We will see these in action, but I just want to cover them briefly. So the government buys a wide range of material from aardvarks to zithers. And while we may know the part numbers, occasionally we will have technical documents. If we do have the drawings and can share them with you, you will see the Tech Docs icon in your solicitation search results. Now, Fast Award indicates that we may award a purchase order as soon as we receive acceptable quotes, even before the official closing date. So one day after the solicitation issue date, the auto system will start to evaluate quotes. If the offer is determined fair and reasonable, an award will be made. If not, the automated system will reevaluate every 24 hours afterwards. Now, I want to put a pin right here, and it's if the offer is determined fair and reasonable, not lowest price technically acceptable, but fair and reasonable, which basically means don't break yourself. We want you to make money too, so don't try to lowball it just to try to win an award. Just make sure that it's fair and reasonable pricing. We set aside many acquisitions for small business and socioeconomic set-asides, so participation on these solicitations is restricted. For questions on socioeconomic certifications, that's when you can contact your local APEX or SBA office. Now, Auto IDPO is an indefinite delivery purchase order, which covers DLA requirements lasting for 1 year, with an estimated value under SAT, being this is a part of the old system. And as you can see, the socioeconomics are in there as well. And so you can also only look for those as well by checking the box. So here we see a database search window that looks like the one on the screen. Now you can search for requests for quotes by searching all the various search categories that are illustrated in the red box. So you can click on national stock number, FSC, solicitation number, etc. Now, a purchase request number is often referred to as a PR, and that is created from a request by a military customer. There may be multiple purchase requests on a single solicitation. If the requirement is not based upon a national stock number, look for an approved part number and manufacturer's cage code. The wildcard character may be used following a search value, and the wildcard character preceding search values is only permitted on the nomenclature search category. So right here, what I want you to do is follow along, and we will select Federal Supply Class from the search categories drop-down box, and then type in FSC 3040, and then click search. Now 3040 is the FSC for miscellaneous power transmission equipment, a federal stock class managed by DLA. On the day of this search, DIBBS returned over 1,450 open solicitations for that FSC. So that should give you a feeling for the scope and breadth of what DLA buys and the potential sales opportunities open for you. Now, we could take a long time going through that number of solicitations, so you'll want to narrow your search to a more manageable list. You might want to limit your search to small business set-asides, opportunities with technical documents, or sort the results by nomenclature. But what we're going to do right here for the purposes of this presentation is we're going to click on the first NSN in column 2 that has the word none in the technical document field, column 4. So once you click on the NSN, it gives you a synopsis of the NSN details. In this example, under approved source data, there's a list of approved cage codes, manufacturers, and their approved part numbers. It also provides a link to the open solicitation. The AMSC, which is the acquisition method suffix code that is assigned to the NSN, is also located in the upper right-hand corner. Listed are 4 of the most common AMSCs. So you have source control, which is the B. C is contracting from an approved source. H is inadequate data, and T is a qualified products list. As you can see, this one is a C. Right in the middle, you see the approved cage codes, 55972, 78286, and 96774, which shows you those last 3 at the bottom, that is Sikorsky Aircraft and Honeywell International, with their approved part numbers. Now coming back to the database, in that search window, we'll have to reselect the FSC from the search categories, and we're sticking with 3040. But we're also going to, below the search value box, into the show only section and filter that category by clicking on items with technical documents. So, and the reason this is important is if you are a manufacturer, chances are you will only want to bid on items that have technical knowledge. If you are not a manufacturer, you will probably be more interested in items that are purchased by cage code and part number. But in either case, by checking one or several of the boxes in the bottom portion of your screen, you'll be able to refine the search results. So in this case, we went from over 1,450 responses down to 522, a somewhat more manageable set of solicitations to review. And as you can see, this is a search for FSC 3040 solicitations that have tech docs, right? So if you click on the solicitation number in the middle of the page, you can read the solicitation document, note the other specialized icons. Now, if you click on an NSN in column 2, you can see that the specifications and drawing numbers for that item. So let's take a closer look. In my example, the AMSC code is G, which indicates that DLA has the complete technical data package for this item. If you look down at the bottom of the screen, you'll see a little icon for technical docs. And that verifies that we have the documents that you can download and determine whether or not you can make that particular item. If you are a manufacturer and the AMSC is other than G, remember you want to access solicitations that have the complete technical documents. we recommend you to the previous page and look for AMSC's OG. And you will want to go and choose the next NSN. As a reminder, if you have questions in regards to accessing the technical data in C folders, you can go to the FAQ section on the DIBBS homepage. Here, we're going to go back up to the top left and click on the RFQ search. Now to show you how to do a nomenclature search. Here you would change the drop down to nomenclature, and we're going to enter the word bumper into the search value field. And now only solicitations with the word bumper and the nomenclature will be listed in the results. So when you search by word or phrase, the word or phrase may appear in the item description, but may not be part of the item name or nomenclature for that NSN. So searching for a bumper may yield a list of automotive bumpers, loading dock bumpers, or even rubber baby buggy bumpers. And the FSC, or first four digits of the national stock number, may help us to zero in on a particular product category. Now, when we go back to the RFQ search result page, and you're ready to quote, you would just click on the letter Q, which is going to be on the next slide. And what I want to show you on this slide before I click on is that RFQs can be either in the solicitations box on the home page or up in the banner where it says RFQs, to search for RFQs. Okay, so here is where you're going to click on the Q and open the quote page. So this is the DIBBS quote input form. Some of the questions are already pre-filled based on your DIBBS registration. However, you can change any field based on the solicitation requirement in your quote. So your first vendor input will be quoting for a cage. From the drop-down menu, you would choose the cage code you are pre-authorized to quote on behalf of. Then from the drop-down box, vendors, you would need to select one of four choices based on your quote. The information provided in this field is used by the auto evaluation system to evaluate automated solicitations, which contain a T or a U in the 9th position of the solicitation number. Then you have bid without exception, which is found in the master solicitation. And this is used to indicate that the quote is in the exact compliance with the solicitation requirements. And the following conditions are not considered exceptions, right? So you have bid without exception. So if you're quoting a different delivery than the required delivery, quoting origin inspection on solicitations requiring destination, quoting a superseding or previously approved part or correction to a cage part number cited in the AID on an item described by manufacturer's cage and part number, quoting a new unused government surplus, and quoting a different quote valid for days than the registration. The second bid type is bid with exception. Now, this indicates that the quote is not in exact compliance with the solicitation, and the following conditions are considered an exception to the solicitation. It's taking an exception to the solicitation item description, the packaging requirements, FOB point or required solicitation quantity, quoting destination inspection when the solicitation requires origin, quoting a quantity variance, which is outside the range specified on the automated solicitations. Now, an automated solicitation, remember, will contain a T or U in the 9th position of the solicitation number, and manual solicitations will have a Q in the 9th position. Now, quoting an exception will preclude you from receiving an automated award. The third type is an alternate bid. This indicates the vendor wishes to supply other than the approved part, which is listed in the solicitation. Now, alternate offers are not evaluated on automated solicitations. If vendors wish to have their alternate item evaluated for future requirements, they would need to submit a technical data package to the supply center, which will be discussed later. The last bid type is a no bid. Most vendors do not submit no bids. However, it is beneficial to do so if the part number listed in the solicitation is obsolete. Vendors can add a quote remark to inform the supply center of a possible obsolete item. Also, submitting a no bid is the only way to delete a previously submitted bid prior to a solicitation award. Quote valid for is where the vendor will input the number of days the quote is valid for. Typically, the government requests 90 days. So if you quote less than 90 days, most likely the buyer will be coming back to you to ask you to extend the quote or submit a new quote. The reason for this, and I want to make sure you guys understand, is that the buyers are typically understaffed, and so they have 70 days before, a lot of times before they even look at a solicitation that ends up being manually looked at. So unless they started it from the beginning, but if it went out automatically, it could be over 70 days before they even take a look at it. So if you only quote and your quote is only valid for, say, 40 days or 45 days, then it's going to be expired by the time they look at it, and they're going to have to reach out to you. So the longer that you can keep that quote out, if you can go beyond 90 days, I recommend that you do it. Then you have the FOB point, or free on board, and this field will default through the solicitation requirement. So if you quote FOB destination, then all shipping costs must be included into unit price of the item. If you quote on FOB origin, then the shipping costs are not included in the unit price. So you'll invoice for the cost of supplies. And that's important because you don't want to add those costs into an origin if you don't have to. First destination transportation must be quoted FOB origin as solicited. So if you quote FOB destination on an FDG eligible solicitation, the quote will be considered a bid with exception, and the quote will not be considered for an automated award. Next section is government inspection point. This field will default to the solicitation requirement. Inspection at destination means that the supplies and packaging will be inspected at the shipping destination on the order. Inspection at origin means that the supplies and packaging will be inspected at the cage code provided for supplies and packaging per the quote prior to shipping. And when you go into submitting a unit price, there may be different quantities per line. So if the quantities do not require different unit prices for delivery, you can input the unit price and delivery in line 1 and click on Cascade Field. Now, what this does is it repeats the unit price and delivery for the remaining quantity lines on the solicitation. However, if you provide a lower unit price and delivery for 59 compared to 25, please provide the different unit prices and or delivery days. And also, since the total quantity will be one purchase order, give us the unit price for a total quantity of 84 compared to the unit price for 25 and a unit price for 59. So during evaluation, you may lose out on an award because you were unable to give us a better price for a higher quantity. Now, if the solicitation requires a first article test, you are able to quote a unit price and delivery only for the first article test. Now, you want to make sure this is the unit price and delivery for the first article test. And it's okay if the first article unit price and delivery is different from the line quantities requested on the solicitation. So if there was this first article test before and it passed, you can ask for a waiver of the first article testing as well. Then you have the minimum order quantity. So you'll select the appropriate response to the question. Can the government obtain a larger quantity at no additional price due to a minimum order quantity? And selecting yes will require entry for the quantity that is available at no additional cost. Then you have the quantity variance. This value represents the quantity the government will accept under and or over the required solicitation quantity. The default is +0 and -0, which is the norm in most cases. But for example, if the unit of issue is feet, you may see a quantity variance of +10 and -10. What this means is that the government will accept 10% more or 10% less than the required solicitation quantity. And on automated solicitations, if a quantity variance is quoted when not allowed or a quantity variance is quoted outside what is allowed in the solicitation, bid type must be bid with exception. And then a big one is quantity available for immediate shipment. So you want to select the appropriate response to the question. Is there a quantity that can be shipped immediately? And if yes, then what is the quantity, unit price, and number of delivery days? Now, reason why I would like to make sure that you understand this is because we typically buy, well, the military or our customer they needed it yesterday and they order it tomorrow, right? So there are a lot of back orders. And with these back orders, what we want to make sure is that the buyer is aware that you have them on the shelf and you can get them out. So when you click this button and you put that quantity in there, you may even want to send an email to the buyer, the contracting officer, and let them know that you have it available in case they miss it. For price breaks, if a larger quantity is obtainable at a lower unit price, then enter the lowest to highest quantity that can be provided for a given unit price. For example, if you have the first 5 at $10 each, the next 5 at $7 each, and 11 to 15 at $5 each. Basically, what will happen is the government may elect to accept these alternate quantities and unit prices for quotes not exceeding the simplified acquisition threshold without further solicitation or discussion. What that means for you is that if you were to put that down, and let's say the government only needs 5, but they realize they can get 15 at $5 each, then if you already have that on your quote, the buyer won't even respond to you. You'll just end up with the award, and they'll be requesting 15 as opposed to 5. In this next section, you're telling the government what product you're providing. So for product type definitions that are listed, you want to click on the blue DLAD 52.217-9002 reference for exact definition. So, but first we'll go over the difference between an exact product and an alternate product. So if you're providing the government the exact manufacturer cage code and part number as it appears in the solicitation, then you want to click the radio button next to exact product. Select the drop-down arrow, and then from the list of manufacturer cage codes and part numbers provided, select the exact manufacturer cage code and part number you are quoting to provide. If you're providing a manufacturer cage code and part number that is not exactly listed in the solicitation, then you want to click on the radio button next to alternate product. You will then type in the cage code of the manufacturer and the part number you are quoting to provide. If you quote an alternate product, the bid type must be alternate bid. Now, a vendor will quote superseding part number if the offered item qualifies as an exact product. However, there's a part number change. With a superseding part number, the change in question would not affect the form, fit, or function of the exact product. Again, just the part number change. So if a vendor quotes a superseding part number, select the radio button next to superseding part number, type in the cage code and part number that you're quoting to provide, and then from the drop-down arrow, you will select either option provided. A superseding quote is considered a bid without exception. And then the last option for a part number offer is correction to cage or part number, which is cited in the acquisition item description, or AID. Now, from the reasons drop-down list, select the correct reason why there needs to be a correction made to the cage code and part number in the item description. And you'll select the correct reason and provide the corrected information in the fields for cage and part number. Now, if the selection is other, then you would need to provide additional information in the part number offered remarks section. A correction to the cage and part number cited in the AID is considered a bid without exception. Now, this is an example when a solicited item is described by a basic specification, a standard, or a drawing. This is how you tell the government that what product you are providing. If you're going to make an exception to the specs or drawings listed, you must let us know so we can evaluate the change. For example, say the drawing calls for aluminum, but you want to provide steel. You need to provide us that information for evaluation. Now, you'll select the type of supplies that you're offering based on the 4 options provided. If the supplies are in accordance with all the specs in the drawing cited in solicitation, the item description, the first radio button should be selected. Supplies offered remarks are not allowed. If supplies are based on a different revision of any of the drawings cited in the solicitation, then select the second radio button. Supplies offered remarks are available but not required, and the bid type is not affected. And then if the supplies are based on changes to the drawings, then you want to select the third radio button. Supplies offered remarks are available but not required, and the bid type is not affected. The last selection is if the supplies are based on other technical data or there's an error in the item description. Supplies offered remarks are available but not required, and again, the bid type is not affected. In this next section, based on the quality requirements of an item, vendors may need to identify the higher level quality standard or system compliance that is in place at the manufacturing facility for the supply. So the quality requirement of the item is stated in the item description as well as in the clauses portion of the solicitation. Vendors will need to, you'll need to select the quality standard or system that is in place at the manufacturing location for the supplies being offered. Basically, if the requirement is ISO 9001-2000, then you must be certified. If the requirement is ISO 9001-2000 tailored, then you just have to be in compliance with the requirement, not necessarily certified. And a selection of none will force a bid with exception. Now, in this section, you're telling the government whether you are a manufacturer providing this quote or you are a dealer providing this quote. So from the drop-down arrow, you would either select dealer, manufacturer, a qualified supplier list dealer, or a qualified supplier list manufacturer. If you select dealer or QSL dealer, you will need to provide the cage code of the actual manufacturer under the cage field. If you don't know the cage code, then in the cage unknown field, you'll provide the manufacturer's name and address. Now, if you are a manufacturer or a QSL manufacturer, then no additional information is required. Now, under material requirements, the system default is no. With the reply no, you are proposing to offer a new unused product from this quotation. However, if you're going to provide a used or new unused government surplus, then your selection must be yes. And from the drop-down arrow, identify what kind of product you are providing. Now, what I will tell you is that as long as I've been doing, because I used to be a contracting officer, I've never seen them accept anything other than new, unused, previously owned government surplus. Now, those other things are there. So somebody's accepting them, but I know here at DLA, I have not seen us accept anything other than new, unused, previously owned government surplus. I just want to make sure you're aware of that. And the online certification will be filled out at this point and submitted with your offer. Now, to assist with the evaluation, it is recommended that you complete the surplus certification with your offer. And the reason why is because basically, if you do not submit it with your offer, the buyer has the option to just bypass it without even evaluating it, simply because they don't have all of the information. So I highly recommend that if you're offering that you fill that out every time. And if your surplus is not accepted, vendor surplus is not accepted. Only previously owned government surplus will be evaluated. In this section, the hazardous materials section, the system default is no. And with the reply of no, you are stating that no hazardous material will be delivered on any resulting contract. But if the answer is yes, then you want to review DFARS 252.223-7001 to determine which statute the hazardous warning label will conform to. And what I want to make sure you remember is that you can view the DFARS reference by simply clicking on the underlined blue text. In the Buy American Act section, you are informing the government whether you are quoting a domestic end product, qualifying country end product, or a non-qualifying country end product. If providing a domestic end product, you want to click radio next to domestic. And if providing a qualifying country, then click radio next to qualifying country and select the applicable country from the drop-down list. And if providing a non-qualifying country, you want to click the radio next to non-qualifying country and then also provide the country of origin, if known in the text field. The Buy American Act does not apply to foreign military sales, overseas shipments, or micro purchases, but is used for informational purposes only. And again, remember, you can always refer to the DFARS by clicking on the underlined blue text. Under duty-free entry, the system default is no. However, if the product is coming from overseas, you need to request duty-free. And so you would select yes and then answer the 3 questions provided. Right here, what we like to point out is that they made the change right here in DIBBS. It used to give you all the different socioeconomic categories. Now it just says small business. And you have the agencies, the institutions, and then large business, other business. So whatever if you do hold a socioeconomic category, they're going to pull that information from SAM. So you want to make sure that that is up to date with the correct information. And this next field is the affirmative action compliance. And this applies to solicitations estimated to exceed $10,000. And you would just select as applicable from the drop-down list. This next field is for previous contracts and compliance reports, and it applies to solicitations estimated to exceed $10,000. Again, you would just select as applicable from the drop-down list. This next field is the alternate disputes resolution. You would just answer the question. Do you agree to use ADR in accordance with DLAD 52.233-9001? And if you need to see the full text, you would just select the blue underlined DLAD reference and then select agree or do not agree as applicable. This last field is certification regarding knowledge of child labor for listed end product. And you would select the response from the drop-down box based on the question given. Are you providing an end product that may have been mined, produced, or manufactured by forced or indentured child labor? Now, if yes, then the bid type must equal bid with exception or alternate bid. And then finally, you will scan through your quote and make sure all the information is completed and correct, and then click on next. So the second step is now to review the quote. And this is your final chance to review your quote to make sure every field is completed and correct. And what you want to remember is you have to scroll down the page to see the rest of the quote. Then you're going to see this important notice, and this is for cage and part number solicitations. And you want to make sure that you read and understand the notices portion of this quote prior to submitting the quote. This will explain to you, based on your quote information, what we expect from you. Now, we've had many vendors that have gone to court and lost because they did not abide by this notice. And this is an example of a notice when offering an exact part number from an approved manufacturer. The next slide will demonstrate there is no notice when you're dealing with a drawing. And then once you've understand it all, you would just go to the bottom right side of the page and click on submit. Now, this is an example of the legal notice when the legal notice is not shown when the quote is in accordance with the drawing. Again, you would click on the bottom right side of the page and submit. And then once you click submit, you want to make sure you receive this next screen which states that your quote was submitted successfully, right? You want to make sure it's green. Your quote was submitted successfully. If you see that red unsuccessful, it means you have to go through all of that all over again. And that's what we don't want. Then to view submitted quotes, you would just go back to the welcome screen of DIBBS. And then under the hot links, you would click on quotes. And then on this quote search page, you can search by today's quotes, recent quotes. You can view quotes by date. You can even choose a date range, or you can do a custom search for the solicitation number, quote for a cage, or vendor quote number, right? And so you can just click on next, or click on the go next to the search criteria that you've chosen for the results. And so here's an example of the quote search. If you need to revise a quote that's been previously submitted, you may do so here before the PR is awarded. And that's if you need to, most people would go in here and revise the quote if the price changed, or if you need to extend the quote, you can do that here. And here you have the GLA Maritime depot level repairable procurements. Those are the Maritime Depot are located at GLA Mechanicsburg, and then you also have Warren, GLA Weapons Support Columbus, also provides contracting oversight for the shipyards listed as well. So you have Norfolk, Puget Sound, Portsmouth, Pearl Harbor. And with that, we have the questions and answers, but I think we're going to turn it over to Vicki.
Great, great, great. I know, each time I hear about this, it's a lot of information. So give yourself some grace on that. It's going to take a minute to get familiar with the site, and it's just a monumental piece. So I'm going to just share a couple screens talking about Apex, and you can go on and take a little voice voice break, because that's been a lot
Thank
of
you.
information for you there. Can you see my screen? It looks
Let
like
me
I'm
stop
screen
sharing.
sharing. Oh, you need to stop
Yeah,
sharing.
I'll stop sharing. Now I see yours.
Okay, I want to get it in presentation mode. Now, do you see it? You see it okay? The screen?
Yes, look,
Oh,
just look
okay.
at Ohio Apex Accelerator.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Again, this event is co-hosted by several Apex accelerators. We're located all across the country. And if you're not already a client with Apex Accelerator, I definitely recommend you get connected with your area Apex Accelerator. We are funded in part by the Department of Defense to help you become procurement ready, help you identify those opportunities in the government marketplace, and help you navigate this procurement process. DIBBS is a prime example of a platform that we can help you navigate through. Anywhere in the acquisition process, Apex accelerators, our services are at no cost. At least Ohio is. It may vary from state to state, but it would probably be a nominal fee. It just depends on the funder. But daily bid match service could be an option, help you with your registrations. We don't just focus on federal government, any federal, state, city, municipalities, we can assist and help you really identify those agencies that buy your products and services. We can help you understand the solicitation pieces. For example, you find a solicitation you may be interested in. Of course, you're going to read it completely and read it again and read it again. And then you get with your counselor and then you digest, you ask questions related to that solicitation and how you submit your bid or your proposal. That accelerator counselor should help you peel back the layers of things you don't understand within. Once you decide, let's say, hey, I want to bid on it, you prepare a draft bid, and that counselor should be able to help you navigate to make sure you've captured everything to submit a solid bid. We help with post-award issues, you reach to us and we can help you navigate that system, getting paid. You need to register, but we can help you if there's some invoicing issues. We provide networking opportunities anywhere in that acquisition process. That's where we can assist. So definitely, if you are not registered with Apex Accelerator, let me see, I think I missed my favorite chart. I wanted to
Hey,
show,
Vicky, we can't see your slides.
okay, well, I guess you don't need the slide, but let's see. I wanted to show I had the chart up to show the co-host, but let's go on and get to the questions. I'll show the co-host at the end, the co-hosts, all those listed to give them their props. But I see there is a couple Apex accelerators on the line as well. And let me just tell you about that. That's where we go. We attend these sessions as well to help our clients. So we're in here. We're in here with it with you. I'm going to stop the recording.